Alright, so alright, so today I'll be talking to you guys about how all the flight restrictions, different quarantines, different COVID outbreaks, just everything in general affected the world as a community. When it comes to people who like to travel a lot, their most feared thing that they have to run into is a epidemic or a pandemic. That's the last thing you want. Somebody who spends all their time traveling the world, traveling to see all these beautiful places, a pandemic hit and they either are unable to do what they want, or they could even be on vacation, and certain instances where people were stuck on vacation. According to Hollingsworth, passengers play a serious role in the transfer of epidemics between locations. So which that pretty much means is they sat down and they realized, like, hey, the reason that all of these viruses, all of these diseases are getting spread from country to country is because people are coming from out of country, contracting the virus, or being exposed to the virus, and then traveling back home, exposing everybody else that they know to that virus. So according to the IFC, as a result, many different airports decided to shut down, and even when they opened back up, they had a whole bunch of mask mandates, and pretty much the airport was at capacity. And this is just bad in general because then revenue comes into play. The airport loses money. No one's able to do anything. No one's able to go see any family. It's just not good. So even there were instances where, like I said, people had flown out and then COVID hit the United States and they weren't able to come back to the United States. It was just a whole bunch of chaos. Quarantine, for those who don't know, quarantine is pretty much the isolation of someone who has been exposed to some specific or just a certain disease. At the height of restrictions in late March and early April, there were more than 310 million Americans that were pretty much placed on this do not leave your house. You couldn't go out, you couldn't do anything. You had to stay in your house and pretty much quarantine because of COVID hitting the United States. Pretty much, when COVID hit, all transportation was cut to a minimum. Like I said, airport companies lost money. People couldn't travel. Even sports teams, professional teams, collegiate teams were not able to travel to these away games that they had scheduled. And prime example, even for the NBA, they were placed on a bubble just so they would be able to, have a season. And for those of you who don't know, what a bubble is pretty much for this whole season, they were unable to have contact with anybody who was not inside of that bubble. So, they had to sacrifice seeing their loved ones, their kids, whole bunch of stuff just to, play that season. And it turns out that, that ended up working. So, in addition to flight restrictions, this also played a huge toll on sports teams being able to just compete. And, now that I've talked about how COVID has affected the airlines and airport companies and individuals just in general, Isaiah will now talk about how COVID-19 has affected the sports industry.